Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Movies for Life YouTube channel. And welcome to this horror movie review video as part of my current modern horror movie review series for the month of March and now April. In case you missed my last video, I had a bit of an update on there that I'm going to extend this series into through the month of April. So with that being said, yeah, this is going to be a controversial one, I think. No, I don't know. I kind of gave a hint as far as what we'll be reviewing today when I watched it last night, and of course that's a movie that's been out for 8 years. That's been talked about, praised, ripped, depending on who you talk to. And of course, the movie I'm talking about is that I have on Blu-ray here, Hereditary. Got the Blu-ray, DVD, and digital. So there's the front, there's the back. It does have some special features there, but yeah, Hereditary is a movie, believe it or not, I'd never seen before until last night for this review, and so it's really interesting. A lot of the reviews and comments that I've read, this is one of the most polarizing horror movies all times. Like half the people seem like they love it and they think it's the greatest thing ever, and half the people hate it and think it's the worst thing ever. I'm somewhere in between. Let's just go ahead and get into it. Talking about Hereditary. So, Hereditary is a 2018 American supernatural psychological horror film written and directed by Ari Aster. The film follows Annie Graham, a grieving miniature artist who uncovers disturbing secrets about her recently deceased mother. She, along with her husband Steve and their children, Peter and Charlie, are subsequently tormented by sinister occurrences. So, miniature artist Annie Graham lives in northern Utah with her psychiatrist husband Steve, their 16-year-old son Peter, and 13-year-old daughter Charlie. The family attends the funeral of Annie's secretive mother, Ellen, at which Annie is surprised at the number of mourners in attendance. She goes to a bereavement support group where she reveals that she and her mother had a fraught relationship until Charlie was born, whereupon Ellen became a significant figure in raising her. Meanwhile, Steve receives a phone call telling him that unknown perpetrators have desecrated Ellen's gravesite, which she keeps from Annie. Peter is invited to a party, and Annie insists that Charlie accompany him. Left unattended by Peter, Charlie eats a piece of cake containing walnuts, triggering her severe nut allergy and sending her into anaphylactic shock. As Peter drives Charlie to the hospital, she leans out of the window to gasp for air. Peter swerves to avoid a dead deer in the road, causing Charlie to be decapitated by a telephone pole. In shock, Peter drives home and leaves Charlie's headless body in the back seat of Annie's car, which Annie discovers to her horror the following morning. So yeah, that's what gets us started there. That's to set up the premise of Hereditary from 2018. As far as the cast goes, we have Toni Collette as Annie Graham, Gabriel Byrne as Steve Graham, Alex Wolff as Peter Graham, Millie Shapiro as Charlie Graham, Ann Dowd as Joan, and Mallory Bechtel as Bridget. So yeah, that's to set up the premise and the cast for the 2018 Ari Aster horror movie, Hereditary. As I said, it seems like everybody has an opinion about this movie, and I've always said opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and most of them stink. But it's good that everybody has one. As far as this movie goes for me, I'd be lying to you if I said it's a horror classic or a masterpiece, as many people have said. I think there's a lot of good to this movie, but again, like other movies I've described, they're kind of outside the horror aspect, and they're more in the technical and directing and acting aspects. That's where the majority of my pros are going to be for this movie. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with those things. So people have talked about it, and it's confirmed that the acting led by Toni Collette is masterful. That's really the only masterful thing I can say about this movie, if I'm going to use the word masterful. But I wasn't really surprised because Toni Collette, everything I've seen her in, she's just a rock star actress. And so, given this role, she really has a chance to stretch her legs and stretch her acting ability, especially physically. And yeah, she knocks it out of the park. She's fantastic. The rest of the cast, I think, is good for, given what they have to do, especially the guy that plays her son, Alex Wolff, as Peter Graham. Although I do have one gripe with him that I'll get into with my cons, but for the most part, I thought he did a really good job, especially in the scene where he realizes that his sister's head is no longer on her body. And he just sits there in the car for a while, and just the look on his face, like just complete shock. He plays it really well. And then even as he's driving home and lays in bed and just kind of lets everything, leaves the body in the car and knows that, I don't know, there's a sense of shock and dread at the same time that he portrays very well. So, but yeah, I thought the whole cast did a good job in this movie. So that's definitely the highlight of this movie. But Toni Collette, yeah, I don't know, Oscar worthy as a nomination, yeah. Am I totally offended that she didn't get the Oscar? No, not really, because we know the Oscars aren't going to go for horror movies. I mean, we just know that. But she is excellent in the movie, no question about it. Yeah, I think all the characters do a good job because they have some pretty intense and dramatic places that they have to go with their characters, especially her. It's a really well shot movie with awesome cinematography. I really like the way that Ari Aster sets the mood and atmosphere with the setting and the filming style that he uses. Like he shows the outside of this house like during the day, and all of a sudden it's like somebody flips a light switch, and then it's nighttime on the same sort of shot. I thought that was really clever and really cool. I love the setting of this house. I don't know where they found it. Well, actually, I think they did mention it in the documentary that I started to watch, but I didn't finish. I was kind of not really paying that much of attention, but but yeah, I really like the setting of this movie. Kind of the isolated big house out in the middle of nowhere. There are some unsettling scenes throughout the movie, but be it a decapitation out of nowhere, or a character bursting into flames, or a piano wire, and I'll leave it at that. It has a sort of disturbing vibe going on, and it stays with you for a bit after you're done watching the movie. So I'll give the movie that much credit. Anyway, there is some things that really stand out and stick with you. I think the sound design and the overall score is really eerie and very effective for the movie. I didn't exactly see who did the score to the movie, but yeah, it's got some great sound design, and how it's inserted at certain places in the movie, I think was very effective. So yeah, that kind of sums up my pros for Hereditary from 2018. As far as cons go, I have to say I think the movie's a little overhyped. And particularly, I'm talking about from a horror scary standpoint. I don't think this movie is particularly scary. Unsettling, yes. Scenes that are disturbing, yes. But you can have those things in other genres of movies as well. That doesn't make it that doesn't make it horrific or scary. It might make you uncomfortable. And as I said, there's definitely some unnerving stuff going on. But was I ever actually scared watching this movie? No, not really. I have to be honest about it. I think the first hour of the movie was more family drama based, with some trauma as it starts to unfold and get closer towards the horror attempt that they have towards the end of the movie in terms of what's going on. But I was never really scared, honestly. I just, I think scares are like comedy. I think it's subjective. Some people are scared by different things, different objects, different people, different ideas. And other people are scared more viscerally or more atmospherically. And so I'm not going to say anybody's wrong for being scared watching this movie. I'm not the guy out there or the person that does I think this movie's a masterpiece, and if you don't, you're an idiot, or vice versa. I think this movie's horrible, and if you think it's great, then you're an idiot. No, that's not how the world works, and I'm glad it doesn't work that way, because I'm glad that there's people out there that got a lot out of this movie to the point where they think it's a masterpiece. I can also understand where people that really hate this movie and won't watch it again are coming from. as well. But it's not scary. Not to me anyway. I didn't get the scares out of it. The movie also has pacing issues. The movie's over 2 hours long, which, if you know me, for a horror movie to be over 2 hours and be effective and successful for me, it really has to be very tight and well paced and well written. And this movie's got it's not entirely. It is in places, but it's got some gaps, for sure. And so as a result, I felt like the first hour or so of the movie was not horror related, but more family drama. And I'm not going to say I was bored by it, because I think Toni Collette and the acting do enough, along with Ari Aster's directing, but it doesn't make it boring. But it's kind of one of those things like, come on, let's go. When does it start getting scary? When do we get into more of the horror aspect of the movie? So it's a lot about trauma and a tense family drama that then transitions as the movie goes on to kind of a... I have to be honest with you. I thought some of the third act was a bit over the top. Maybe it's because the first part of the movie is so grounded in reality with the characters and the performances and the family drama. And then all of a sudden we go into this supernatural, over the top sort of characters floating in air with no explanation. But it's kind of an over the top demon cult finale to the movie, the last 40 minutes or so. And I don't know, those two things just didn't jive that well to me. It just didn't really transition all that well. It's kind of like they were trying to do a few different things with this movie, and none of it was very successful, in my opinion. The overall plot really doesn't make a lot of sense either, if you think about it. There's so many plot contrivances and conveniences. Let's talk about Steve's denial. Steve being her husband, Steve Graham. So he's literally sitting in on a seance attempt that she's having midway through the movie, where he actually sees like a glass cup move and slide back and forth, and other things, noises and things flying around. But yet, like a couple of scenes later, he thinks she's crazy. And he's the skeptic. He doesn't believe anything she's saying, even though he saw with his own two eyes what was going on during this attempted seance. That doesn't really work. The demise of Charlie, which we come to find out at the end of the movie, we're led to believe that this cult that's involved, and that's as much as I'll say about it, that we discover at the end of the movie, was basically responsible for Charlie's death. That's interesting. So basically they knew that Peter was going to swerve a certain way when he saw a deer on the road. They knew that he was going to get high at the party. They knew that she was going to come to the party with him. They knew that she was going to have a cookie that had nuts in it to go into anaphylactic shock, to have trouble breathing, to roll down the window, stick her head out the window. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's just, no, doesn't work. And then finally, the character of Annie, played by Toni Collette, she's able to crawl on like attic rafters and float in the air. The third act of the movie, that's never really explained. Now I understand that she's possessed by some kind of supernatural element, so that's the one of the three that I brought up, that because we've seen it in other movies and you just kind of have to go with it. That's the one but still, I mean, it's just kind of like, I think this movie's better directed and better acted than it is better than the story is written, if that makes sense. In other words, I don't think this is a great written movie. I think it's a well-directed movie. I think it's a well-acted movie. But not that tightly written, if I'm honest about it. Okay, so my one gripe with Peter, I mentioned the character, the performance of Alex Wolff, and I think this is probably more of a character way he was directed thing, but... So Alex Wolff's probably around 20, 21 making this movie. He plays a 16-year-old, but in the middle of this movie, when shit starts hitting the fan, he kind of acts like a 9-year-old, where he's literally crying and putting his head on his dad's shoulder and saying, "Mommy, Mommy." That didn't work for me. It kind of took me out of the movie. I think I know what they were going for there, but yeah, it doesn't work. I just didn't like that part of his character. And then my final con is I thought the ending was kind of underwhelming for everything that was set up, and I kept waiting as it was building. I kept waiting for a big finale, and as I said, it was a little over the top. It was kind of the horror part of the movie, if you want to say, I would say, as far as from an on-screen standpoint. But it just didn't work for me. It just kind of, like the very ending, kind of left me underwhelmed. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. That's just how I felt about it. Other people might find it more to their satisfactory, but I just didn't. And therefore, all that being said, I'm not gonna shit on this movie too much. I will rewatch it. I'm glad to have it in my collection. It's kind of like the Babadook. Ook, ook. I gotta rewatch it again, and I will. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I don't think it's awful, but I also don't think it's a masterpiece, like some people have said, especially with the time the movie came out. I don't think it's scary, and I think it's a little overrated. Part of that's the fact that the way they marketed this movie as well. Over the course of 7 or 8 years, I've seen Toni Collette's faces. I've seen the way she acted to make you believe there was something horrific in front of her. And well, some of the scenes does have some unsettling stuff, and I don't know, man. It's a little overhyped. It's a little bit their fault, because when you claim to be the scariest movie ever, this generation's The Exorcist, as it says there, a modern day horror masterpiece. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I'm going to go in with expectations that are raised. That's just the way it is. So sometimes you have to be careful with that stuff. And if it had been more like Cabin in the Woods, a movie I reviewed at the beginning of this series, where it didn't get a lot of hype or a lot of praise or a lot of hatred, it was just kind of there, I think I actually would have liked this movie a little bit more. But because I went into it with such high expectations, nah, it didn't quite work for me. Now, we'll see what happens when I rewatch it, whenever I do. I don't think it's going to change my mind entirely to where I consider it a masterpiece, but I'll probably get more out of it. It is that kind of movie that you probably pick up on some more things upon rewatches. But anyway, that's my opinion. 7 out of 10 for Hereditary. I do like it a little bit more than Ari Aster's other well-known movie, Midsommar. I don't remember what I gave that movie, but I don't think it was as high. This movie's a little bit better than that in terms of the setting and the characters and the directing and things like that, but it's still not a horror movie that I love, if I'm being honest about it. So with all that being said, go ahead and comment down below your guys' thoughts on Hereditary. I know everybody's got them. Everybody's got thoughts on it that have seen the movie. So are you one that thinks it's a masterpiece? Are you one that thinks it's crap? Or are you kind of like me, somewhere in between? Comment down below. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It would really help me out for the future content of my channel going forward. But with all that being said, this is a long video. I kind of knew it would be, because it's a talked about movie. But thank you for watching, and as always, stay scared. Bye.